Well, the virus has now killed more than 100 people in China, and new cases have been confirmed around the world.
So you don't want to frighten the American public.
France and South Korea have also got evacuation plans.
But you need to prepare for and assume.
Strongly warning Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China.
That this is going to be a real serious problem.
France, Australia, Canada, the US, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on.
Health officials are investigating more than 100 possible cases in the U.S.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Hashtag War Room Pandemic episode. What episode are we now, Vish? 342 begins here Wednesday, August the 19th, the year of our Lord 2020, on Newsmax TV later on in the day. Blown through the CCP's firewall by G News and GTV, subtitled in Mandarin to reach all the Lao Beijing, the ordinary Chinese working people out there, sick and tired, as you heard in the first hour from Bill Gertz of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, on the America's Voice Network, on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Vish Burra, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, here from Capitol Hill. Over now to Stephen K. Bannon.
Look, we started this show, War Room Pandemic, to talk about this global crisis, and the economic crisis is going to trigger, and the financial crisis on top of that. Look what just happened in the last 24 hours. Think about if you saw the Democrats last night in their convention, the $4 trillion of new taxes, all the new economic policies, back to the neoliberalism, the failed policies of the last 30 years. We've been talking about this for months and months and months. Now's the time to think about precious metals in your portfolio. Gold's on fire for one reason, because the dollar's soft, the economy's going any which way. World economy is in a downturn. Japanese just had the biggest downturn in their history. Now's the time you need to talk to the guys at Birch Gold. You need to start thinking about get precious metals in your portfolio. They got a 20-page report that's outstanding. Remember, now's the time you've got to think about adding precious metals to your portfolio. Raheem, tell people how they can get more information about the guys at Birch Gold and putting precious metals in their investment portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. To get your no-cost, no-obligation kit, text Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N, to 474747. For a limited time, see how you can qualify for up to $10,000 in free precious metals on your purchase. Text Bannon to 474747. That's Bannon to 474747. Steve.
Yeah, if you want to sleep at night, get precious metals in your portfolio, because I got to tell you, you listened to the crazy last night. Here's what's so stunning. How are they trying to sell with a straight face the American people on the neoliberal economic policies that did nothing but destroy jobs, concentrate wealth, have income inequality, ship all our factories overseas, allow unlimited amount of competing labor against blacks and African Americans in the working class, and neocon policies that spent $7 trillion in the Middle East on these failed wars? And how does Colin Powell, the hero of the Gulf War of the early 1990s, right? How does he come back, given the disastrous run he had in the Bush administration? How does he sit there, Raheem, and talk about unity when he had that disastrous presentation at the United Nations that years later we found out was all inaccurate? How does he talk about unity with a straight face? I don't get what the Democrats are trying to do here. I don't get what they're trying to sell in all of the Bernie supporters, particularly the Bernie supporters that are patriots, the ones that have served in the armed services, have served in these foreign wars. Last night you got it in full living color. Raheem, I want to hear your analysis of Colin Powell. If we have any more clips, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, looking at this, and like you say, you know, trying to figure out what they're doing here, this does appear to be a harkening back to the early 90s, mid-90s. You have John Kasich and Colin Powell and Bill Clinton and Joe Biden. I mean, these are...
John Kerry. John Kerry.
I mean, if this is what the Democrat Party wants to present itself as, these old dudes who ran third way, LSG, Anthony Giddens, Tony Blair style politics, the neoliberalism that shipped jobs overseas, that impoverished much of America, that led to many crises that we're seeing, not just here in the United States, but crises that you're seeing manifest all around the world. And the cleanup effort, by the way, this will remind people of the cleanup effort that President Trump is having to make, whether it's drawing down in Afghanistan, whether it's putting peace deals together in the Middle East. This is a cleanup effort that the Trump administration is doing right now. Drain the Swamp was a true statement of what had to be done as a result of decades of third-way politics. And I want to hear more from Colin Powell as well. Let's roll clip 5 here.
Safe. Joe Biden will be a president we will all be proud to salute. With Joe Biden in the White House, you will never doubt that he will stand with our friends and stand up to our adversaries, never the other way around. He will trust our diplomats and our intelligence community, not the flattery of dictators and despots. He will make it his job to know when anyone dares to threaten us. He will stand up to our adversaries with strength and experience. They will know he means.
Just Steve, Colin Powell there says that Biden will trust the intelligence community. This is a disgraced intelligence community, and we're finding out more and more about that as every week goes by. It's an intelligence community as well, by the way, which recently found that the Chinese Communist Party prefers Joe Biden to win the election, just saying. And he said they'll stand up to foreign adversaries. That's not what Max Baucus was saying when he was doing interviews for CGTN earlier this year. Max Baucus, who Joe Biden was the cheerleader of to take over the ambassadorship in China, Max Baucus goes on CGTN and he says that Joe Biden will not criticize China as much as President Trump is. Those are his words, Steve.
No, this is Colin Powell, just like McCain, another war hero, an icon to the American military and to the American people. And then what did he miss in the Obama years, and particularly the pivot to Asia? Joe Biden doesn't stand up to dictators. Joe Biden kowtowed to the dictator. He was put on the ticket to oversee and to babysit President Obama because President Obama ran as an anti-war populist. He's from Wilmington, Delaware. He was on the Senate Foreign Relations. He's Wall Street's pick to make sure that he was looking over the neocon and neoliberal policies. He was the one put in charge. President Obama trusted Joe Biden to lead the pivot to Asia. And that meant to go and try to confront the Chinese Communist Party. It was a debacle. This is why President Trump had to come in, as he said in that clip we had a couple of segments ago. He had to step in there and really confront the Chinese Communist Party on the technology and information war, on the economic war, and then to start stiffening our spines on hopefully avoiding the kinetic war in the South China Sea and around Taiwan. It's absolutely stunning that Colin Powell can say that with a straight face and thinks he can sell it. It's not, General Powell, it's not sellable, okay? And here's why it's not sellable. It's an outright lie. Joe Biden doesn't stand up to dictators, kowtow to the mullahs in Iran, kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party. Please tell me and pick a specific example, General, where Joe Biden stood up to anybody. This is good old Joe. He can't be good old Joe one day and want to have a beer with him in the barbecue and a guy's going to stand up to dictators and stood up to anybody. And you and McCain and Joe Biden were part of that group that saw the atrophy of NATO. It was Donald Trump that said, hey, guys, guess what? It's a partnership. It's an alliance. You got to put something in the kitty. How about 2% of your GDP, which you agreed before Donald Trump even came on the scene? He enforced it. He made NATO a much more robust alliance. That's all Donald Trump's America First foreign policy. Not to become isolationist. He's had more engagement in the Pacific, in the South China Sea, and in Asia than any president. And look, I served as a naval officer in the 70s, a huge Reagan fan. I made a film about Reagan's foreign policy. Trump has had more engagement than all the Democrats combined. How can you say he's an isolationist? So, Raheem, here's what galls me so much. Is not only is the failed policies, they put this patina on it like it's some American great golden age we should go back to. This was the beginning of the disaster. This was the beginning of the managed decline of the United States. If you're a working class person, particularly if you're Bernie Sanders, someone in a labor union up in the upper Midwest, if this is what you want, this is just Hillary Clinton's put together with a nicer guy. She's a total jerk. Joe Biden's a nice guy. Okay, that's the only difference you got here. And now you've got them all ramped up. They want to undo what President Trump has already put together. So Raheem, Jack, love to hear from you guys before we bring Brian Kolfage in to talk about where President Trump was just today on action.
Steve, many of our listeners always ask for you to do a special on the Party of Davos. And I think that one of the things that we can say about the DNC convention, it illustrates exactly what we're talking about when we talk about the Party of Davos. We're talking about people who are willing to sell out the American worker for dirty lucre. And that includes all of the rhinos sitting up on the stage with all of the Quislings in the Democratic Party. They are one herd of betrayers, in my mind.
If the DNC convention was aired on Animal Kingdom, it would be a special on swamp creatures. That's exactly what we're seeing.
That's a Ramaswamy-esque. That's a Ramaswamy-ism.
I'm learning.
Do we have that clip, by the way, that goes to Steve's point? I want to play that clip that goes to Steve's point. Is it clip 12?
Yes, let's roll it.
Let's roll this clip.
I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us. But here's where we are. We're in a situation where right now we have not only the strongest military in the world, we have led not by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. That's why the rest of the world has it referred to us. Not a joke.
This is Joe Biden talking about how the Chinese Communist Party is not a threat.
Right. This is him a year ago running for the nomination, which he has received. And actually, he doesn't seem like he's making much sense a year ago either. It's been a decline ever since. But this is the problem. This is the same guy who had 25 hours of private conversations with Chairman Z that we don't know anything about, that John Kerry told him he's the number one guy in terms of meetings with Chairman Z. Nada, nada, nada. We need to know what was going on inside those meetings.
Steve, you want to bring in our guests?
Look, on one hand, on one part, look, the Chinese people are our allies. Lao Beijing are the deplorables of China. We have every week, and we're going to have a Rule of Law Society special on Saturday to talk about this, the rule of law in China today, particularly Hong Kong, given what's happened to Jimmy Lai and everything. You're going to hear more voices of the Chinese people. They're our allies, no doubt about that. But Joe Biden's talking about his partners over there in the Chinese Communist Party. Yes, they are a threat. They're a threat to the Chinese people. They're a threat to the American people. They're a threat to all mankind. And, Joe, all you got to think about is what they did in Wuhan with this lab, which, by the way, when President Trump tried to stop travel, you said it was hysterical xenophobia. You're a running dog for the regime in Beijing. You're a useful idiot for the regime in Beijing. And this happy talk, and you haven't heard the C word one time. Last night was their foreign policy. Not one mention of China. Not one mention of the Chinese Communist Party. Okay? You know what this means? You're not serious people. You're not serious people. You're trying to spin the failed policies of the 90s, the double aughts, and last decade. That's what you're trying to spin, okay? And it can't be spun anymore. The American people are too savvy. They got too much access to information. I think the Democrats made a massive mistake last night in trying to do the Lincoln Project, reach out for that 4 to 5%. They showed their hand, and now it's for President Trump just to line up on the football and just drive it. And that's why I think Yuma yesterday was a perfect place for him to be, for counter-programming to talk about the wall. So I don't know how much time we got in this segment, Raheem. Maybe we just want to handle and bring Brian Kolfage in the next segment. I want to have Brian talk about the wall. We've got our embed in Portland to talk about the ongoing anarchy there. But, guys, I want to make sure all the War Room pandemic posse gets in here. Also, start giving us your questions about this special we're doing on Saturday from the Rule of Law Society, talking about the rule of law in China. We're going to have many guests on there. If you have specific questions about what's going on in China, about what's going on in Hong Kong, about the oppression, I want to make sure everybody sends them in to us like you did for the last town hall.
All right, fantastic. You heard the man, ladies and gentlemen. War Room Pandemic. That's pandemic.warroom.org is the URL. Hashtag War Room Pandemic across social media. We want your feedback. We want to get your questions, your queries ahead of the Saturday special. In the next, over the course of the next hour, we've got so many great guests. The Embed from Portland, Brian Kolfage from The Wall. We have Wade Davis, Professor of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia, and more. So Don't go anywhere. Hit those like buttons, those share buttons, get more people involved. We'll be back with more War Room Pandemic in a second.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver.
You ready for your weekly meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do this.
Let's stack the deck.
When legends play, they wear Copperfit Advanced Back Pro. Copperfit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing. To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain and it's affecting your everyday life. You do something.
If you can find something to help you get back out and be active like Copperfit, go for it.
Absolutely.
Do not give up. A high-performance compression fabric infused with the powerful properties of copper, 360-degree flexible mobility, and lightweight, durable construction.
Nothing more painful than having back pains. If you're aching, if you feel like you can't work out anymore, you can. And that's with Copperfit.
Yeah. It's for all of us who still want to be active, still want to compete.
Way to go. That's what I'm talking about. Man, this really does feel good. It feels to me like the fountain of youth.
Copperfit's best-selling back support just got bigger, badder, and better. Or call 1-800-944-5851. Or on the web at advancedbackpro.com. Get yours now for only $19.99.
This does feel good.
That's what I've been saying.
You think it was fair?
It was fun.
Play for the love of the game.
Copperfit, live limitless.
This is the kind of card that has America talking. With it, people with Medicare are getting all-in-one coverage for their doctor visits, hospital care, prescription drugs, and more. This kind of insurance, called Medicare Part C, may also cover dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids, fitness programs, vitamins, even healthy meals and rides to the doctor. With this kind of coverage, you do not need a Medicare supplement insurance plan. You will access your benefits through your Medicare Part C plan for one low and oftentimes $0 monthly plan premium. You deserve to get the most from your Medicare benefits. Call now for free information that may help you get more coverage for less money. There is no obligation to enroll. Whether for yourself or someone you love, call the number on the screen now. Call now.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, 2020 has been a gut punch to American business, and if you're going to succeed, you need every possible advantage. Smart companies run on NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. Receive your free guide right now at netsuite.com/Bannon. Welcome back to the War Room. Jack Maxey, Vish Burra, Raheem Kassam here on Capitol Hill. Over to Stephen K. Bannon.
Yes, in the economic inferno that we have, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be at the tip of the spear. You need NetSuite by Oracle. Remember, go to netsuite.com/Bannon, Bannon, today to get your 7 action steps that every entrepreneur has to be taking, whether your company's $1 million in revenue to $100 million in revenue. Go to NetSuite by Oracle. Remember, Oracle is the leader on the cloud. Jack, before I bring in Brandon Judd, I know you've got some listener and viewer participation. Why don't you read what we got here?
This one is great, and it's from a guy named General Patton, MCEA. Make commies extinct again. I already like him. And he says, when General Powell can tell us that America does not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy, like John Quincy Adams, I will again trust him and his sage advice as a military mind and statesman. I think that goes right to the core there, Steve.
Wow, pretty hard. I want to now bring in a talk about American heroes
Steve,
and American patriots.
Some breaking news before we do this. Just I want to jump in with it. So the Apple has just hit a $2 trillion market cap in intraday trading. It's extraordinary milestone for Apple there, which led Jack to ask the question here in the break.
So I guess that means they can afford to lose the Chinese marketplace and bring all those jobs back to America with that kind of dough.
Steve.
And what about kicking back to Lao Beijing? The Chinese slave laborers have made all the equipment and products for years during Steve Jobs' reign and all the way up to the present. Why don't we kick him back a little something for the effort? You know, it doesn't do. I don't sit there and take that as a badge of honor to hit $2 trillion. They had every tax break in the world. They've lived off of shipping all jobs overseas. They've dined off of the slave labor of China, and they're a business partner with the Chinese Communist Party. I think it's outrageous, and I think they're outrageous as a company. But now I want to bring in a guy who is a hero. That'd be Brandon Judd, who's the head of the union for the Customs and Border Patrol. Brandon, you guys endorsed again yesterday. People, a lot of people don't know who you are, but I want you to walk through what's the union and why was it important for you to endorse President Trump, and how is building the wall going down on the border?
So let's be clear. We are not a typical union. You know that better than anybody. You helped shape the endorsement in 2016. You were heavily involved in that. And you know firsthand that we are not a typical union. We are not the people that go out there and strike. We are not the people that say you have to pay us more wages. We are not the people that say you have to let us do less work and pay us more money. What we do is we look at what is the best for border security. What can we do? How can we push our politicians to give the American public the safety and security that they absolutely have to have? How can we keep this great country the greatest country on earth? And the only way you can do that is if you abide by the rule of law. That's what we push for. That's our core goal. That's our core efforts. The vast majority of people that go into law enforcement, they go into it because they want to serve their fellow citizens. They want to help out. They want to protect them. And they want people to have that level of comfort that they can go out and live their lives in a way that they want to do it. If you have lawlessness, you can't do that. You can't do it in Portland, Oregon right now. You can't do it in Seattle, Washington, Chicago, Illinois. It just doesn't happen. There's too much violence, and that's simply because our politicians have failed us for their own benefit. And so we try to keep politicians in check. That's one of our core goals.
Brandon, this is what's so amazing, given the emphasis was on this in the 2016 campaign and your endorsement. I thought it was one of the most important inflection points in the entire campaign. Since that time, your union membership has been intimidated by this kind of radicalized aspect of the Democratic Party that you're not going to see up on TV in the next couple of days. They don't want suburban moms and suburban housewives to understand this. Can you please tell about the courage of your members of your union, of how they're being terrorized by local people, and also the situation that in these places around the country where your agents have been called in to help reinstall law and order in other areas of the country may not be right on the border?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's funny because we not only do we get terrorized by just the radical left, like the Antifa groups, we get terrorized by politicians. We had Ocasio-Cortez go out on the border and call Border Patrol agents Nazis, that we were running concentration camps. And what that did was that fueled the hate that certain groups in the United States have towards law enforcement. You know, that when you add fuel to that fire just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger, to where you end up where blocks of a city are controlled and you don't even have police in there, and crime ensues. I mean, what did we have? 2 murders in the autonomous zone in Seattle, Washington. And when that happens, you also have lawlessness on the border. If you have policies that invite people to cross our borders illegally, they're going to cross the borders illegally. And what you're doing is you're enriching cartels because you're allowing them to have a business structure to where they can go out and they can sell their wares to people and bring them to the border and charge them astronomical figures. Right. Illegal smuggling is a multi-billion-dollar business, and it's fueled because of liberal policies and politicians and other groups like Antifa that don't want us to have borders.
Brandon, real quickly, how can people get public? Do you have your Twitter feed? How do people get more access to you? Because you know more about what's going down the border than just about anybody in this country. How do people get access to you?
BPUnion.org is our website, and then at BPUnion is our Twitter feed. Please like us on Twitter. Follow us. We're always going to support those individuals that are going to support the safety and security of the American public.
Brandon Judge, head of the union, thank you very much. Great patriot. And give your folks down there are just doing an amazing job. Some of the bravest people in this country. Okay, now I want to bring in Brian Kolfage. We have Brian teed up. Brian, I need to hear, you first off, a huge thing. You've been the leader of this, assisting President Trump in building this wall in these tough areas where the Army Corps of Engineers has decided not to go. But We Build the Walls had a big announcement. You actually got in the face of the guys that helped you provide the platform to raise this money. Can you tell the American people what's going on with We Build the Wall and why you walked away from this this fundraising apparatus?
Yeah, so we started this fundraising effort on GoFundMe, and GoFundMe, they were sort of good to us. I mean, they weren't the greatest hosts, but we raised $27 million on our platform. We expect at least some censorship, or not to be censored. We created a fund on Monday for the victims of Black Lives Matter, and GoFundMe deleted it. And since they deleted this GoFundMe that we made, we felt that we had to delete our We Build the Wall GoFundMe, which was the largest GoFundMe ever in history. So we completely deleted that GoFundMe, and we need other Americans to stand up to this type of censorship. We can't allow it. So whether it's Twitter or these other big tech companies out of Silicon Valley, we cannot allow it. We have to stand up and fight back. And we're not going to give GoFundMe another penny out of the money we raised. And, that's just the type of action we have to start taking.
Brian, before we turn to our in-bed from Portland, I want to ask you, President Trump's in Yuma yesterday throwing down on Biden. Where do we actually stand, in your opinion, on actually getting the wall built and President Trump fulfilling that campaign promise?
I think we stand in a pretty good spot, especially if he, as long as he gets elected. By the end of this year, he's supposed to have 450 miles of new border wall completed. If we attack on another 4 years, it could be close to 1,000 miles of new border wall, which is significant compared to where we were when he took office. I believe we only had about 16 miles of pedestrian wall that would stop, people from being able to climb over it. So from 16 miles to 1,000 miles, it's a pretty big impact for the Border Patrol agents to give them the tool that they need to secure the country.
Brian, how do people get access to We Build the Wall? Can you give us your Twitter handle and how people get access to the webpage?
Yeah, don't go to GoFundMe anymore. Screw them. Go straight to our website, webuildthewall.us, webuildthewall.us. Find us on Twitter at We Build the Wall, or find my personal page, Brian Kolfage, on Twitter. Yes, we need to stop using these platforms and go direct with the companies that we want to find. So, take action. Come right to
Brian,
our website.
Thank you very much, Brian. Talk about the victims of some of the elements of Black Lives Matter. We're going to bring our embed in from Portland. The rest of the show is going to be about the unraveling of America, right? We're going to have the anthropology professor on that wrote this great article in Rolling Stone. But first, do we have the embed in yet from Portland?
We do. We've only got 40 seconds in this segment here, Steve.
Okay, well, let's go to break. Let's get hashtag War and Pandemic on it. We'll bring our embed in to start talking about the unraveling of America. Then we'll bring in this amazing anthropologist on the article in Rolling Stone about the unraveling of America.
All right, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Make sure you're plugged into all of the things that we provide for free, whether it's subscribing to the YouTube channel that you're watching right now, whether it's subscribing to the free podcast, leaving a review. Every time you take an action, more people are reached by the War Room, by this show, and get the messages that you hear and love every day on here. Hashtag War Room Pandemic returns in just a second.
Stay tuned to get a free pan from Granite Stone. Stuck on eggs, burnt on batter. You can scrub and scrape, but you can't escape the nightmare of your sticky pans. Introducing the Granite Stone Pan, the all-new durable non-stick pan. No butter or oil needed. Watch, we melted down these sticky candies in Granite Stone, and it just doesn't stick. We cooked a half a dozen eggs, bacon, cheese, and tomato breakfast with no butter or oil, and it just doesn't stick. Look, caramels, chocolate, and cheese. Unreal for any other pan, but not for Granite Stone. It just doesn't stick. Granite Stone will be the last pan you'll ever need because it's pressed from a solid aluminum disc for even heat conduction, then coated 3 times with our durable Granite Stone finish. Granite Stone is metal utensil safe and won't scratch. And talk about non-stick. This salmon cooked skin side down with no added butter or oil just doesn't stick. This steak is perfectly seared just like the pros. And because Granite Stone is oven rated to 500 degrees, we bake this upside down pan pizza to perfection, and it just doesn't stick. Fire flambe delicious cherries jubilee. Plus it's PFOA free and 100% dishwasher safe. Call or go online to get your Granite Stone pan for the special TV discount price of just $19.99. Granite Stone is so durable it comes with a 10-year warranty. And with every order, you're going to get a Granite Stone single-serve egg pan absolutely free. It's the perfect size for personalized eggs, omelets, or frittatas that slide right out. It makes the best bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich quick. Yours absolutely free. We'll even ship your entire order free. That's right, free shipping. You get it all, an incredible value. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-850-0237. That's 1-800-850-0237, or order online at buygranitestone.com. That's 1-800-850-0237. Call now.
My son needs this drug. I hope it doesn't cost too much. I hope my insurance pays for it. Can you tell me how much this will be? $67. Sorry. Wait, have you heard about GoodRx?
GoodRx finds free coupons to help you save up to 80% on your prescriptions.
Wow. I had no idea.
GoodRx. Stop paying too much for your prescriptions.
This is Kate.
Hey.
She takes 2 prescriptions. Kate's son Jack takes 1 too. Kate works hard and thought she had good insurance. But she still pays too much. That's no good. So Kate downloaded the GoodRx app. Now she can compare prescription prices to find the best discounts. She even beats her insurance price. Good for you, Kate. Good for you. GoodRx. Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, 2020's been a gut punch to American business, and if you're going to succeed, you need every possible advantage. NetSuite by Oracle is the world's #1 cloud business system, sponsor of this show. Smart companies run on NetSuite because it gives you the visibility and control over your financials, your HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. Everything you need all in one place. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in sales, NetSuite lets you manage every penny with precision. You'll have the agility to compete with anyone, work from anywhere, and run your whole company right from your phone. So join over 20,000 companies who trust NetSuite to make it happen. NetSuite surveyed hundreds of business leaders and assembled a playbook of the top strategies they're using as America reopens for business. So get your free guide, 7 actions businesses need to take now, and schedule your free product tour at netsuite.com/Bannon. That's netsuite.com/Bannon. Welcome back to the War Room. Steve, did you get that one loud and clear?
I did get that one. I don't have to replicate it. It was so good. Okay, listen. This last half hour of the show, we're going to talk about the Unraveling America. We're going to take you from the streets of Portland, Oregon, where the anarchists are in control, to the ivory tower with a quite brilliant professor that's written an amazing piece in Rolling Stone. You don't have to agree with it, but you've got to understand it. I want to go to our embed first. Sir, What is going on in Portland? This B-roll you're sending us looks like more chaos, more anarchy. Are the officials out there getting their hands around this at all as it continue to get out of control?
It's completely getting out of control right now. Last night they went to a whole new meeting place, a park in Portland, and they broke into a government building, which was not the federal courthouse. It houses the sheriff, elected officials, and the offices of diversity and equity. They lit fires around it in dumpsters, and then they started breaking the windows of the building, and then lit the inside of the building on fire. And after that, alarms went off in the building. Riot police showed up immediately. Riot was declared over the loudspeakers, Portland police loudspeakers. Police rushed in, dispersed Antifa and BLM from the area, and then began a chase, which happens nightly through residential neighborhoods, and more dumpster fires were set after that. But last night was pretty significant.
Why, this is what people don't understand. Why are federal law enforcement officials not around these buildings? And where's the Justice Department task force out there arresting people?
No, actually, first, the feds, I believe a deal was made between Mike Pence and the governor of Oregon and possibly the mayor of Portland, that Portland police would begin taking care of, the rioters, Antifa and BLM. That's why the feds pulled back. And the Portland police have been out there aggressively every night. And although it's taking its toll, obviously. And then as for arrests, I haven't seen anything going on here with respect to feds. It's Portland police are making very few arrests, actually, because the district attorney here has promised not to charge Antifa or BLM for any crimes.
Last thing, we'll have you back on tomorrow. You're doing an amazing job. This a BLM member who attacked this guy that was trying to help a transgender person or try to defend somebody the other night, got brutally beat in the head. Where do we stand with the manhunt for that guy? Is he under arrest yet? Is he in custody?
He's not under arrest yet. They're still looking, and I expect that he is probably out of the area. Antifa regularly posts on the feeds that I watch, telling everybody not to talk to the police and to help this guy get off. So I don't see him coming in.
Embed, last question for you. We'll get you back tomorrow. As you're out there in Portland on the 84th day of this, yes or no? Is America unraveling or not?
Yes, in liberal areas.
Thank you very much. We'll have you back on tomorrow. Now I want to turn to Professor Wade Davis, wrote a brilliant piece in Rolling Stone. We're going to have it up on the site, but we want to have him here. And guys, I want you to jump in and ask your questions. I know the whole posse's got things to ask, but I want to start off. Professor Davis, thank you first off for joining us. And walk us through this article. Walk us through the highlights of the piece of the Unraveling of America that's in Rolling Stone right now.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I mean, this piece really began, people had asked me to write about COVID, and I had really declined because I didn't really feel I had anything new to say, and there was a lot of noise out there. Until one day I kind of realized and was thinking that it's not really a medical story, and it's not really a story of morbidity and mortality. It's really a story of culture, And I wrote that piece largely, I see it as analogous to a love letter in a way. It's often been reported since this thing went viral that I'm a Canadian commenting on the States. The truth is I was born in Canada, but I became a naturalized American. I married an American, and my career was born in America. My kids were raised in America. I've got a son-in-law in the military on active duty and so on. So this is not any kind of anti-American rant. Quite to the contrary, it's more like an intervention in a family where you feel that, you have to hold the mirror to the beloved family member so they can kind of see where they've fallen to and that might just be the first step in the path of rehabilitation. We've had pandemics before. My own grandfather died in the Spanish flu of 1919. Millions of people died. But the impact wasn't quite the same because it happened in a world already numbed by death because of the Great War. And similarly, people forget that in the summer of 1969, as 500,000 American kids swam around the mud at Woodstock, there was a major Hong Kong epidemic that killed over 100,000 people. And in Germany, they were using subway stations to store the corpses in Berlin because the morgues were overrun. But the difference was that, first of all, we didn't have global technology to carry the story internationally, and we didn't have international travel. Remember the 1960s, the vast majority of Canadians and Americans had never been in an airplane. But the key thing about this pandemic is not even the absolute numbers of people who sadly have suffered either injury or death, but it came about at a time when it suddenly unveiled what, in a sense, had become of America. And so when the Irish Times said, we've had many feelings about America, good, bad, indifferent over the years, but one we've never expressed is pity. And when you realize that frontline workers were, eagerly awaiting emergency airlifts of basic supplies from China, my sense was that the hinge of history had opened to the Asian century.
So, Wade, So Wade, I want to just go through some of the very interesting pieces, things that jumped out to me at least in your piece, and the first thing I want to read this out loud. This is from your piece. The United States, virtually a demilitarized nation on the eve of the Second World War, never stood down in the wake of victory. To this day, American troops are deployed in 150 countries. Since the 1970s, China has not once gone to war. The U.S. has not spent a day at peace. President Jimmy Carter recently noted that in its 242-year history, America has only enjoyed 16 years of peace, making it, as he wrote, quote, the most warlike nation in the history of the world. Since 2001, the U.S. has spent over $6 trillion on military operations and war, money that might have been invested in the infrastructure of home. China, meanwhile, built its nation, pouring more cement every 3 years than America did in the entire 20th century. So I want to expand about the idea that we've been in endless wars, and what is the opportunity cost, right? What have we foregone by pursuing these wars to the tune of trillions, and how has these actions led to China, the torch of history being passed to Asia, and more particularly China?
Well, let's remember that China has not been some completely benign player over the last 50 years, and certainly has consolidated its central control, even as it's expanded its mercantile and industrial and trade relations to the point where people who have traveled, as I have, to sometimes 50, 60 countries a year, you find that the footprint of China virtually everywhere in bizarre ways. Building the police station in Rorotanga, the opera house in Dakar, an overpass in Lome, in the capital of Togo. I mean, there's this sort of, buying up parts of the tar sands here in Canada and trying to employ their own workers imported from China. You can't miss the expansion of the Chinese interests, whether it's in militarization in the South China Sea or securing ports in Sri Lanka with the same kind of tenure that the British secured in the 19th century to what became Hong Kong. So that's clear. I mean, I think going back into America for a second, the most amazing thing is the capacity of this country. As you noted, on the eve of World War II, this country was virtually demilitarized. Both Portugal and Bulgaria had bigger armies, and yet within 3 years, we had 18 million men and women serving in uniform. The transformation of the industrial might. I mean, the Ford Motor Company produced more industrial output during that war than the country of Italy. Ford's Willow Run plant was spitting out B-24 bombers two an hour, and each one had 1,500,000 parts to it. We, without even thinking, we We sent over 500,000 Studebaker trucks to the Russians. It goes on. We were building Liberty ships by the hour. The record for building a Liberty ship from scratch was 4 days, 29 hours, and 17 minutes. And if you want to really get a sense of the extraordinary industrial might of America, when brought together, galvanized by common purpose, common principle, common commitment, for every 5 pounds of equipment, I just listened to this stat that didn't make that article, Steve, for every 5 pounds of equipment, that can be ammunition, rifles, clothing, food, fuel, whatever, that the Japanese Empire of the Sun got to a frontline troop in World War II in the Pacific, how many pounds do you think we got? Well, the answer is 2 tons. 2 tons for every soldier when they could get 5 pounds. And we had to ship that across 13,000 kilometers of ocean. So there was this extraordinary capacity that literally saved civilization. American industrial output together with the blood of Russian soldiers, and that's something we should never forget. Remember that 85% of German casualties in Europe were at the hands of Russians on the Eastern Front. And the problem is, in the wake of the war, we never stood down. And in part because we had further battles to fight. The Soviet Union was an evil empire. And the Cold War had to be won, and there was no one else to do it. In this piece, I think if you read it carefully, there's never blame. There's just an attempt to explain what happened. And so that, the second key thing at that fulcrum of history was the fact that because Europe was in ashes, because Asia was prostrate, 6% of the world's population, Americans, literally controlled 50% of the global economy. 93% of the world's automobile. Mm-hmm.
Doctor, we got a break here. Can we just hold you over? There's a very short break. I'm going to come back with more of this as well. Thank you. We're very grateful to have you staying on with us for the last segment here on War and Pandemic Returns with Vish Burra, Jack Maxey, Stephen K. Bannon, Raheem Kassam. Broadcasting live from Capitol Hill, our guest, Dr. Wade Davis, author of this Rolling Stone article. Be right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. I guarantee you they'll be the most comfortable sheets you'll ever own.
With the Giza Dream Sheets, I'm getting the best sleep of my life.
They are so soft and smooth. I never slept so good.
I fall asleep faster because I'm actually comfortable.
I started by using the world's best cotton called Giza. It's only grown in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable, which is why I can give you my full 10-year warranty. But I didn't stop there. My Giza sheets also include full 21-inch wide pillowcases that will fit over any pillow and deep pocket sheets that will fit over any mattress. I guarantee you the first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen right now. MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets are available in a variety of colors and will be the softest, most comfortable sheets you will ever own. Use the promo code and get 2 for 1 low price, plus free shipping. Giza Dreams are made with the finest, most sought-after cotton in the world. Giza cotton was once reserved for only the finest dress shirts, but is now available in Mike's Giza Dream Sheets. They feature a beautiful silky sateen weave that helps keep you cool and comfortable all night long.
With the Giza Dream Sheets, I'm getting the best rest of my life.
I love my Giza Dream Sheets.
Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Use the promo code and Mike will give you a very special 2 for 1 low price and free shipping. That's right, get 2 for 1 low price and free shipping. Call or go online now.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Frustrated with heavy rubber hoses that always get tangled and easily kink? Introducing the Bionic Flex Pro hose, the super strong, super tough hose that's ultra light as well. Run over an ordinary hose and it'll easily burst, but the Bionic Flex Pro hose stays intact no matter what runs over it, because its reinforced drag-resistant commercial-grade outer polyester weave makes it tougher and stronger than ever. And its solid brass fittings are crush-proof too. Ordinary hoses kink easily and stop working, but the the Bionic Flex Pro hose never kinks. It just keeps flowing strong. And while regular hoses easily get tangled, the Bionic Flex Pro hose is tangle-proof. You can get the 25-foot Bionic Flex Pro hose for just $19.95 with free shipping. But wait, order today and we'll upgrade your order to a 50-foot Bionic Flex Pro hose. Just pay a separate fee, and shipping is still free. Go now.
Call 1-800-313-8062.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
All right, welcome back to the War Room, the last segment here on this gloomy-looking Wednesday, August the 19th, on Capitol Hill. Got Vish Bura, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam here on Capitol Hill, and our guest in this segment, as in the last, is Dr. Wade Davis, the author of this article in Rolling Stone, which has caused a lot of discussion, dissent, and agreement on social media, depending on who you're listening to. Dr. Davis, I wanted to, before, I know we've got questions that have already been teed up over the course of the break, but I wanted to get into something very quickly. I know we've only got 7 minutes here. In the early part of the article, you write about the illusion of American exceptionalism, and I wanted to ask you, what was the thought process behind using the word illusion to describe American exceptionalism?
Because I think that Americans have this, they look in the mirror and they see only their exceptionalism and the kind of the myth of America that maybe once was or was dreamt into being in the time of Madison, Monroe, and the founding fathers, celebrated by Lincoln and so on. And maybe the exceptionalism of this extraordinary country that came together during the Second World War, literally with its industrial might to save civilization. And that's not hyperbole. Without that, we would have been gone down a rat hole of unimaginable horrors. But what's happened since the Second World War is not a country that is exceptional in any way, any more than the fact that the United States, with a small percent of the world's population, is inordinately suffering morbidity and mortality during the COVID crisis. That's not a kind of a point of exceptionalism anyone would seek out. And I think if you're not able to see what is in the mirror, then that's an illusion, and that can become a delusion.
But I mean, you would have to concede that there have been moments of American exceptionalism since the end of the Second World War. I mean, there would be no World Wide Web in the shape that it's currently in without the United States of America. There have been innovations across. This is the reason that the Chinese Communist Party are stealing the technology and the innovation from the United States. I mean, I'm not from this country. I know you were born somewhere else too, but you are naturalized here now. I am but a humble visa holder in this country, but I still see, as somebody who comes from the United Kingdom, as somebody who spent a lot of time in Europe, my parents are from an Indian background, they grew up in Tanzania and East Africa, I still see the United States of America as the single most exceptional nation in the world as it pertains to the spirit that is embodied by its people and what they use that spirit to do. I understand the framing of the article. I just happen to think there are moments of churlishness that don't need to exist here.
Well, nothing would make me happier than to be proven to be completely wrong in the premise that this might be the end of the American era. And I say that without any kind of sense of satisfaction, certainly no celebration, and I certainly don't gloat. I'm just looking at the wheel of history as history unfolds. 15th century belonging to the Portuguese, 16th to the Spanish, 17th to the Dutch, 18th to the French, 19th to the British. The British were still drinking their gin and tonics all around the world in 1935, when technically the empire reached its greatest extent, but we now know it was bled white and bankrupt by the war, and probably weakened far before that, and the torch had passed to America. I think you have to look in the mirror and see what is. Yes, of course, America remains a fountain of genius, a fountain of technological wizardry, but at the same time, this is what has proven to be so demoralizing during COVID. The very country that was able to vanquish smallpox and polio found itself, led by an individual who was recommending the use of disinfectants, found itself, a country that once spat out fighter planes by the hour suddenly couldn't secure basic, swabs and gear to protect
Dr. Davis, with all due respect, the United States has done the most in terms of the COVID crisis of any country. It's shouldered most of the burden of any country in the world. It has changed its manufacturing sector, is bringing manufacturing home. You're seeing what Kodak is doing. You mentioned in your article about. Just let me finish this thought, and I'll hand it over to you. You mentioned in your article, in the face of adversity, how American innovation has brought Americans out of crises. You mentioned the rubber and the innovations that took place here. We're seeing the same thing happening today. Are you looking at a COVID crisis from the middle of it and trying to judge it as totally retrospect?
I just like you to address one question. Why on July 30th, when the United States announced 59,679 new cases of COVID, did we here in British Columbia, which is an Asian population, as you know, have but 5 COVID patients in all of our hospitals? Something's working here in Canada that is not working in the States. So I think it's wrong to say that America has led the way in the fight against COVID. Other countries, particularly social democracies, from Denmark to New Zealand, seem empirically to have done a far better job at controlling both rates of morbidity and mortality. Massachusetts, for every one person.
I am absolutely in agreement with you, Dr. Davis, that countries with and places and areas with different population densities have different results in this. Countries that test differently have different results in this. I mean, we've seen the British government suddenly remove 20,000 cases from their numbers because they were testing differently and were trying to bring those testing things back into line. I think a lot of this stuff is comparing apples and oranges, but we are getting off the topic here, and I know Jack Maxey wants to jump in here as well, but I do appreciate the conversation on this. Jack?
Doctor, I have a really quick question because much of what you described seems very similar to the thesis of Paul Kennedy, a military historian who wrote a really groundbreaking book about 25 or 30 years ago called The Rise and Fall of the Great Powers. And it really described how a great power declines because of imperial overstretch, this ability to try and control all aspects of the globe while bankrupting your own country. Do you see some of that here in the United States? And in the end, you said that COVID-19 did not lay America low. It simply revealed what had been forsaken. What was that?
We've got 1 minute here, Dr. Davis, before we have a
I think that, military adventures are one thing, but also the internal social solidarity of a country is another. In the wake of World War II, because of our affluence, we could afford to create a kind of a truce between capital and labor that led to a vibrant, dynamic trade union movement. The middle class, where a man with relatively little education could nevertheless support a family, buy a car, buy a home, put his kids in good schools, and that kind of deal, if you will, was bit by bit violated throughout the subsequent 20 years, to the point where we now live in a world where the top 1% control $30 trillion in assets. The bottom half have more debt than assets. The vast majority of Americans are...
Dr. Davis, we're literally at the end of the show here, but we'd love to have you back on another time. We really appreciate this conversation, really appreciate the counterpoints. As Dr. Wade Davis's articles in Rolling Stone, you have to read it, ladies and gentlemen. Even if you disagree with it, as I do with certain parts of it, it's well worth the read and the understanding. Make sure you're texting Bannon to 474747 to get in touch with Birch Gold. War Room Pandemic returns tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. You know me as the My Pillow guy, but what you might not know is my story. I've spent years writing my memoir, and it's finally done. Before this terrible pandemic came upon us, I had already wrote, I dedicate this book to anyone looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. And I've always used mathematics to prove that God exists. In our lives, we've had things happen that are 1 in a million or a 1 in a billion, or we might say that's impossible. Well, when do we say it all has to be a miracle? My life has been like living inside of a movie, and in my book, I have pictures that are going to validate everything that you're going to read. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible.
Mike spent the last 7 years writing his book to share his life story. In this difficult time we are in, Mike's book will bring much needed inspiration and hope to everyone who reads it.
But now the game was over. The house had won. I was going to die right here on this deserted street. A small item in the news. American tourist goes missing in Mexico.
Call now or visit MyPillow.com to purchase What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO. Enter the promo code and you'll receive free shipping. Mike will also include a free $25 MyPillow gift card. Mike shares his incredible story of addiction, divine intervention, and hope. In his new memoir, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO, learn how Mike's 14 near-death experiences and heavy crack addiction led him from a place of total darkness into the light. Mike's personal stories of transformation remind us that with faith, all things are possible. Call now or visit MyPillow.com to purchase What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO. Enter the promo code and you'll receive free shipping. Mike will also include a free $25
Hello, I'm Jessica Rivera with your latest news update. Last night marked the first night of the Democrat National Convention with headliners like New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Cuomo spoke using PowerPoint charts showing the decline of coronavirus cases in his state of New York and is already hinting at a 2024 presidential run.
We know that our problems go beyond the COVID virus. COVID is the symptom, not the illness. Our nation is in crisis. And in many ways, COVID is just a metaphor. A virus attacks when the body is weak and when it cannot defend itself. Over these past few years, America's body politic has been weakened. Only a strong body can fight off the virus, and America's divisions weakened it. Donald Trump didn't create the initial division. The division created Trump.
Sanders spoke on the differences between himself and Joe Biden, like on health care, but also talked about their similarities, saying Democrats' differences have to be put aside in order for the party to defeat President Trump.
Joe will rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and fight the threat of climate change by transitioning us to 100% clean electricity over the next 15 years.
And to end the night, former First Lady Michelle Obama spoke. In her speech, she spoke negatively about President Trump, saying his lack of empathy is infuriating, and went on to say what she thinks it takes to be the president of the United States. Michelle says the job of the presidency reveals the true character of a person. She claims President Trump lacked qualifications to become the president and says President Trump has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, and she alleges he is clearly over his head.
We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a black woman speaking at the Democratic Convention. But enough of you know me by now. You know that I tell you exactly what I'm feeling. You know I hate politics, but you also know that I care about this nation. If we have any hope of ending this chaos, we have got to vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it. He was a terrific vice president. He knows what it takes to rescue an economy, beat back a pandemic, and lead our country.
And President Trump's response to the former First Lady is, if it wasn't for her husband, he would not have been elected. Last night at the DNC's first night, Obama said the president's White House is in chaos and lacks empathy. President Trump then took to social media saying that someone needs to explain to Michelle Obama that he would not be in the position if it wasn't for President Barack Obama's job while he was in office. President Trump says Biden has merely been an afterthought, and the Obamas have pretty much given their late and unenthusiastic endorsement of the former vice president. The president went on to say the Obama-Biden administration was the most corrupt in American history, all while spying, committing treason, and much more. The president ended his response to Michelle Obama with some of his many achievements while in office, such as building the greatest economy of any country, currently rebuilding what the pandemic has destroyed, the NASDAQ's record high, his quick and proper response to the pandemic, which is in stark contrast to Obama's response to H1N1 swine flu, which President Trump calls weak and pathetic. The president also pointed out the corrupt fake news media support and the numerous free passes they have given to the Obama and Biden administration.
You know, I noticed at their convention tonight, these are all taped speeches. Michelle Obama, her speech is taped. Why don't they tell me that? I'll tape my speech. Next week I'll tape it. It's a lot easier. I'll make sure it's perfecto. Every word will be perfect.
And over the weekend, extremist protesters faced off in Stone Mountain, Georgia. The The groups fought for hours over the removal of massive Confederate statues in the local state park. The extreme right group is fighting to keep the statues, and the extreme left group is fighting to remove them. Police allowed both groups to get close. Both sides were heavily armed, which ended with plenty of chaos, but no arrests were made. And remember, you can watch us on Dish Channel 219. We're also on Pluto TV Channel 247, on your phones, other devices, Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and on our America's Voice News app. And that's going to do it for your latest news update. I'm Jessica Rivera, and you're watching America's Voice News.